How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. I know some may have heard about this tragic shooting of another one of our kings killed by a cowardly cop. One thing that I can definitely say, black folks is the only one I see get killed in some of the most craziest circumstances. So let's start here. They murdered my cousin. How do you have someone in cuffs, in a seat belt, and shoot them multiple times? All cops aren't bad, but these were. I will fight with the last breath in me for justice. William Green was a family man, a working man, fun-loving, love and miss. So, this is Mr. Green. The other pictures I seen, they tried to make sure he looked horrible, like they always do, along with his cousin. So I'm going to do some justice to this for this royal family. So this is the cop that killed him. Michael Owen. So it says here, the cop charged with murdering a handcuffed man in his police car previously killed another man. Oh yeah. Let's hear about it.
Shoots and kills a man who was handcuffed in the back of a cruiser. And Good Morning Washington, Sam Sweeney is live in Temple Hills with details on the investigation. Sam?
Kelly, it all started with reports that a man was driving, hitting cars here near St. Barnabas and Winston Streets. Well, it started in the Silver Hill area and it ended at this intersection here behind me. Take a look at the scene from last night. Here's what we understand. This man was taken into custody. He was handcuffed. He was put actually in the passenger front seat of this police cruiser. When a police officer got in to the driver's seat, some sort of argument, physical altercation ensued. That suspect, despite being handcuffed, was able to touch the officer's gun, according to police. And that's when the officer took out that gun and fired multiple shots, killing the suspect. Now, we just heard from the victim's family. As you can imagine, they are very upset.
We want to know why our loved one was brutally shot in a police car, handcuffed, seat belt, and in the front seat. What harm could this individual do to this police officer?
Thank you.
Obviously, he did not resist arrest because you had him in handcuffs. You placed him in there. His life matters. Damn. Come on, y'all.
Yep.
The family said they were notified by Prince George's County Police late last night. Now, police are also saying they believe that this man may have been high on PCP. The officer said he smelled it in the car. But again, that all remains under investigation. That officer is also off the job. That is routine procedure while this investigation plays out. We're live in Temple Hills.
So as we continue on my royal family, I have some footage here, and I'll play it twice. Maryland officer charged with murder after fatal shooting of man handcuffed in car. The man was taken into custody by Prince George County Police, responding to reports that a man had struck multiple cars. Okay, we didn't hear all that. Well, somebody actually has some footage just before he passed, while he's, let's see, interaction.
Police in Prince George's County, Maryland, say one of their officers responded to 911 calls last night that reported a driver hit several cars in suburban Washington, D.C. The apparent driver was arrested, as this cell phone video shows. Police say he was handcuffed and put into the front seat of a police car with a seatbelt fastened. Both the officer and the suspect were African American. What happened next is now under investigation. Police say the two got into some kind of struggle inside the car, and the man, still wearing handcuffs, was shot several times. He died at the hospital. Relatives identify the man as William Green. His fiancée wants to know how he could have been a threat.
When your hands is behind your back in cuffs and you strap down, you move, handcuffs get tighter and tighter.
Late Tuesday, prosecutors filed a slate of charges against the officer.
I have directed our Special Investigations Response Team to charge Corporal Michael Owen with second-degree murder, manslaughter, and associated weapons charges.
Green's fiancée still wants answers.
I'm hurt. I loved him. He was loved. He didn't deserve that.
Pete Williams, NBC.
Okay, so let's go back. I think it was around the 14-second mark. Let me see if I can get that, because we don't need to see the whole thing. There it is. Somewhere around there. I'll go a little bit back, because I know y'all don't want to see the whole thing. If I can do it. No, let me refresh it. Forgive me for that, family.
Police in Prince George's County, Maryland, say one of their officers responded to 911 calls last night that reported a driver hit several cars in suburban Washington, D.C. The apparent driver was arrested as this cell phone...
Okay, you see him right there leaning on the car. He ain't giving nobody no problems. And we already know, again, when they handcuff a black person, they're going to make sure they make it real tight behind our backs and everything. And we hear that a handcuffed black man in a seatbelt was able to touch his gun, but he was fast enough to shoot him multiple times. What I heard was he shot him 7 times. So let's just look at that little piece right there.
Video shows police say he was handcuffed and put into the front seat of a police car with a seatbelt fastened. Both the officer and the suspect were African American. What happened?
Okay, so we'll leave it right there. You know, I was listening to Roland Martin, and I have to agree with Roland Martin. Guess. One of them said they think that this cop knew him. They think that it was something going on, because that story ain't gonna jive. But this ain't the first time I've heard of a black man being handcuffed and shot. And it's just crazy. It's real crazy, the shit that they say when it comes to us. And so, again, they're saying that Owens, they'll talk about that other part, but right here they're saying that Owens' record has also came under scrutiny in 2011. He was involved in another fatal shooting but not charged. On Monday, Owens was among officers who responded to a report that a driver had hit several vehicles in Temple Hills, just south of Washington, D.C. Upon locating the driver, police said he seemed to be under the influence. Now, we seen him there. I'm not saying that he was under influence or not. It didn't seem like they had no problem with him right there at all. If they was able to handcuff him, they were able to put him in a seatbelt, there were no problems. There wasn't no problems. Let me see here. Okay. Let's see here. Nice looking brother here. So this is the brother that he killed. So, though Owens was placed on administrative leave over the 2011 incident, he never faced charges, and the killing was ruled justified. WJLA reported. In another incident in 2009, Owens exchanged gunfire with a person who attempted to rob him outside his home, police told Washington Post. The robber attempted to shoot Owen, who was off duty at the time. He shot back. Neither person was hit. The robber fled, and neither person was charged. That's somebody that knew him, because he do janky shit on the street. In an interview with the station on Tuesday, Owens' uncle, Nathan Edwards, react to Green's killing. Even when he killed my nephew, they tried to justify it. The pieces don't make sense. Oh, yeah. Let me see what's going on here. Okay. Let's watch this.
And breaking out at 11 o'clock, a Prince George's County officer, this man right here, under arrest, charged with murder in the shooting death of William Green last night. Green was handcuffed and in a seatbelt sitting in the cruiser.
Tonight, ABC7 has team coverage hearing from Green's family as well as the police chief, who was visibly angry.
7 on your side also digging into Corporal Michael Owens' service history, which includes a number of shootings. We'll have that in just a moment, but first, 24 hours ago in a police briefing, the PCDP, they said to us the PCP may have been a factor in this.
Well, the chief walked that back today.
Our media relations representatives last night spoke to the possibility of PCP being involved. That does not appear to be the case.
And police also mentioned last night that witnesses saw a struggle.
Yeah, the chief saying that was preliminary information, and he walked that back as well.
The account that we had last night that there were independent witnesses of a struggle inside that vehicle, that was not corroborated. That was not corroborated.
All right, let's go to Annalisa Gale tonight, beginning our team coverage.
And Annalisa, the chief was at a loss for an explanation tonight, announcing the charges.
Michelle, Jonathan, big story here for the police department for sure. We know the Green family attorney plans to say something likely tomorrow morning about this case, which has been described as unprecedented by this department, considering the very serious charges against this officer.
We have really been grief-stricken with the family, and that we as a community have grieved with this family today.
County Executive Angela Alsobrooks expressed her condolences for the family of 43-year-old William Green on Tuesday evening.
There is absolutely nothing that is acceptable about this incident.
Her remarks next to the state's attorney Aisha Braveboy and Chief Hank Stawinski comes moments after Corporal Michael Owen Jr. was charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter, and assault in connection to Green's death on Monday night.
I have concluded that what happened last night is a crime.
Stawinski says Owen shot Green 7 times while he was handcuffed in the front seat of his cruiser following a traffic stop.
We don't understand why they just, if it was an issue, which it don't look like it was, why didn't they just tase him?
Family members say Green was returning from a restaurant when he was pulled over by Owen just before 7:30 p.m. Witnesses told police that Green hit their vehicle. He was believed to be under the influence of an unknown substance.
It's just baffling because he was handcuffed with his hands in his back. Why did you have to shoot and kill him?
Green's sister-in-law remembers him as a loving father of 2 who was generally calm.
Because he doesn't react to anything in a negative way. He was a very fun and loving family man. The family is very heartbroken.
And the county executive is trying to rebuild the trust between this department and the community by ordering an independent review of the department's training practices to prevent this from happening again. Live from the Prince George's County Police Department tonight, Annalisa Gale, ABC 7 News.
Annalisa, thank you. And 7 is on your side with a closer look now at Corporal Michael Owens' record. We found this was at least his 3rd shooting. ABC 7 Maryland Bureau Chief Brad Bell helping break news over the past 24 hours on this case. He is digging into the story and found this wasn't the first time Owen killed a man.
This is the most difficult moment of my tenure as your chief of police.
Prince George's County Police Chief Hank Stawinski visibly upset, announcing that for the first time in the history of his agency, an officer is being charged with murder for an on-duty crime.
There are no circumstances under which this outcome is acceptable.
That officer is 10-year veteran Corporal Michael Owen.
Somebody saw something out here.
Owen may be familiar to ABC 7 viewers. That's him on our air back in 2015 but he served briefly as a department spokesman.
Still on scene, working to establish.
We first reported today, and Chief Stawinski confirmed Owen has made news for other reasons as well. What happened last night in Temple Hills is his third shooting as an officer.
There are prior instances that are a matter of public record regarding this officer.
2011 in Landover, Owen shot and killed 35-year-old Rodney Edwards after Edwards pointed a gun at him. At the time, Edwards' family was furious.
Point blank range, 5 shots.
2 years prior to that, an off-duty Owen exchanged shots with a man he said was robbing him outside his Greenbelt apartment. Neither was hit. Both shootings were ruled justified. What happened last night being described as anything but.
Corporal Owen was picked up at his home this afternoon. He's now being held in the Prince George's County Detention Center. He faces a bond review hearing tomorrow. And if he is ultimately convicted on all of these charges, he faces decades in prison. In Palmer Park, Brad Bell, ABC 7 News.
Yeah, in fact, if convicted, Corporal Michael Owen faces a very long time behind bars. The maximum sentence for second-degree murder, 40 years. For manslaughter, up to another decade. The chief did mention related gun charges but didn't specify, but that could also add significantly more time if Owen is convicted. Now, a lot of people are wondering why there is no body camera footage to go through. Prince George's County is still rolling out a pilot program. And in fact, when you look at the area, look at the map, body cameras, they're not that common. DC and Montgomery counties have thousands of patrol officers. And this spring, Fairfax is going to roll out more than 1,000 body cameras. Arlington, Alexandria, and Anne Arundel County police departments do not have department-wide programs.
All right, my radio family. So we done got some background, and now we are going to listen to. You see, did we get in? We don't need that one. We need to get right into the press conference and all this shit about the police. The police chief is visibly shaken and all of that. No, you got to do your damn job. But there will be some fuckery along the way. So let's listen to this dog and pony show.
County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. I'd like to first start by thanking the members of the media for staying around today. As you may imagine, this was a critical incident that occurred last night on St. Barnabas Road in Oxon Hill. Our police officers, our chief, we all wanted to make sure that we had the most complete information to bring to the public, and so we are prepared to do that at this point. So you will first hear from County Executive Alsobrooks, followed by Chief Hank Stawinski, and then concluding will be State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy, after which we will take questions.
Good afternoon. We want to thank all of you for coming out today. And to begin by saying this has been an exceedingly difficult day for all of us, for this community, for this department, and most especially for the family of William Green. I want to begin by offering our prayers to his family at this time, and to tell you that we have really been grief-stricken with the family, and that we as a community have grieved with this family today. We are here because less than 24 hours ago, we had a critical incident. I want you to know that I have been briefed pretty much around the clock about this incident, and having had the opportunity to be briefed by the department, I should tell you that there is absolutely nothing that is acceptable about this incident. We have said to this community over and over again that we value the trust of the community. We understand, quite frankly, it's impossible to keep the community safe without that trust. We have promised over and over again that they would have from us transparency and accountability. And so I am very proud of the work that has been done over the last nearly 24 hours by this department. They have worked really without ceasing for nearly 24 hours to investigate this matter. And I am standing today with our Chief of Police, Hank Stawinski, as well as our State's Attorney, Aisha Braveboy, who you will hear from as well. What I can tell you is that you will hear the details about this from our chief, but I want you to know that we not only value the trust of the public, and that we will, in every instance, put their well-being first. But I should tell you that even after today's announcement regarding charges, that I have directed the chief to order an independent review of our department's training practices and methods to ensure that an incident like this never ever has the opportunity to occur again. And so now I will call to the podium our Chief of Police, Hank Stawinski. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson-Brooks, and good evening. This is the most difficult moment of my tenure as your Chief of Police. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the patience of our partners in the media. But our community knows that when I have the facts, you will have the facts. For the past almost 24 hours, I have remained in constant consultation with members of our Special Investigations Response Team, our Criminal Investigations Division, our Forensic Sciences Division, and our use of force experts. This has been a thorough and exhaustive review of all form and manner of evidence available to us, as well as a review of the preliminary findings of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the District of Columbia. And here are the facts. I am unable to come to our community this evening and provide you with a reasonable explanation for the events that occurred last night. I am unable to come to our community this evening and offer you a reasonable explanation for the events that occurred last night. I have concluded that what happened last night is a crime. And as a result, I have directed our Special Investigations Response Team to charge Corporal Michael Owen with second-degree murder, manslaughter, and associated weapons charges in the death of William Green. I want to, as always, speak on behalf of the hardworking and dedicated women and men of this institution. These actions do not represent them, and they represent the finest that this community has to offer. But I also want to be clear. There are no circumstances under which this outcome is acceptable. And I want to extend my heartfelt sorrow and sympathies to the Green family. You have my assurance that all of our methods and practices will be examined as this investigation proceeds, and I will be looking to independent eyes in the coming days to provide further insight into these circumstances. With that, it is my privilege to introduce to you our state's attorney, Aisha Braithwaite.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Madam County Executive. Thank you all for being here today. As we are public servants, we must address the public when there are issues that we know are important to them. As was stated, the police in this case have charged Officer Owens. Officer Owens is entitled to a bond review, so he'll be in court over the next couple of days. As with any case where a felony is charged, a grand jury will be convened. They will, of course, collect additional evidence, interview witnesses. They have subpoena power. So there will be a thorough investigation into this case. We are very early in that process, but at the conclusion of that process, final discharging decisions will be made. And we will, as we do with all of our cases, seek justice. So thank you all for being here today, and I know that we're here to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
There are prior instances that are a matter of public record regarding this officer, and I will be providing information through our Media Relations Division as appropriate and in accordance with Maryland law on those events for you.
Chief, did this have anything to do with Mr. Green wanting to use the restroom?
I cannot confirm that at this point. We are not quite 24 hours into this, and we are now in a position where we have placed charges because I have concluded that what occurred last night was a crime. But I do want to emphasize to our community that while I am confident of the evidence and the probable cause that substantiates those charges, we do not have a thorough and complete accounting of every single detail. The fundamental details, however, are the basis of the probable cause for which we're using to place these charges this evening.
Can you speak to that? Can you speak specifically how you came about being able to decide what he did with the crime? Can you speak specifically to that?
What I'm going to do is refer you to the statement of probable cause that we'll be releasing and ask you to use that as the foundation for your reporting on this evening. And then as this proceeds, we'll provide additional details. However, we are collaborating and have been collaborating since last night with the Office of the State's Attorney, and we want to ensure that our public statements at this point, despite the action that we have taken that I feel to be appropriate based on probable cause, do not interfere with the ongoing prosecution and subsequent representations to a grand jury in this matter. We have partial deployment of body cameras across our department. I have always been fully in support of deploying additional body cameras throughout our department, but I would like our county executive to address that because she has taken aggressive action on this topic, and I'll invite Ms. Salsa Brooks to the mic.
And so we have decided before this year that body cameras were appropriate, and so we last year's budget funded the first installation of body cameras, and we began the process of putting in place the infrastructure. In this upcoming budget, what you will see is that we have now funded for our entire Bureau of Patrol. So every officer in the Bureau of Patrol will have those body cameras, so they will be fully rolled out, and they have been accounted for in this year's budget. And so we will have our body camera program, which we started implementing even before this year. He did not have a body camera on during this incident.
Maryland has the law enforcement officer's bill of rights, which may or may not complicate this investigation. I'm not sure, which is why I'm asking. Could you reflect on that first, please?
Well, if you'll allow me to indulge, the state's attorney is in a position where she will now be fundamental to how this proceeds. So I would like to answer that question. And the legal analysis that I've received, again, as part of this extensive review over the last almost 24 hours, is that LEOBR does not attach under the circumstances that are before us. This is an unprecedented set of circumstances in the experience of this institution, and in my view, it necessitated unprecedented action. But the legal analysis I have is that we're not contravening LEOBR in taking these actions, and my belief for our community is that this is the only appropriate course of action under these circumstances. So again, I won't get into the details of that. I am confident that we have established probable cause to place these charges. We're not going to contravene anyone's rights with respect to LEOBR, but LEOBR does not attach under the circumstances which, again, are unprecedented and which we face this evening. Corporal Owen is a 10-year veteran of the Prince George's County Police Department. There's additional information we'll be providing to you through our Media Relations Division, but beyond that, we have to be circumspect because, again, we have to respect the work that the state's attorney will be doing in the coming days with respect to that officer and the fuller context of this event. I will say that we believe 7 shots were fired, and I believe that's reflected in the statement of probable cause. And I want to be clear with my community, that's part of what's led us to this decision. But beyond that, I'm going to refer you back to that statement of probable cause so that we don't interfere with what will be the process of presenting this to the grand jury. Again, we're going to provide you with as much information as the law in the state of Maryland and our perspective on transparency will allow you to have. You know that. I give you my assurance on that. We are working to provide that to you, but I'm not going to make comments from this podium on that topic. I'm going to provide you that information through MRD so that we do not violate the officer's rights, and we certainly don't want to contravene Maryland law in this matter.
Chief, based on a timeline that we've been able to establish with some videos in the air, it appears as if Mr. Green stopped on Bennett Street at around 7:24. And we hear the officer call for a departmental shooting at approximately 7:40. 7:58, 7:59. What happened in all that time? What's going on?
Preliminarily, there were concerns raised by the two responding officers with respect to Mr. Green's level of impairment by unknown substances. And they were attempting to secure additional support from a drug recognition expert in order to address that. In that intervening time, these events occurred. That's where we are, and that's as much detail as I'm able to provide you, again, in the context of prior questions about where we are and then in preparation for a grand jury presentation. What we endeavor to do in Prince George's County, and as you know, is to provide facts when we have facts. Preliminarily, our media relations representatives last night spoke to the possibility of PCP being involved. That does not appear to be the case. Further, the account that we had last night that there were independent witnesses of a struggle inside that vehicle, that was not corroborated. That was not corroborated. And I'm not able to state to a certainty with respect to whether or not Mr. Green was seatbelted in that cruiser. Those are the three substantive changes that occurred as this investigation proceeded through the early morning hours and brought us, frankly, to this point. Those are the 3 points that I want to correct. Again, I hope that the community will offer me some latitude. We seek to provide information quickly and to be transparent. That was preliminary information. And as I've always promised the community, when I have facts, you'll have facts. So again, we do not believe PCP was involved. We do not have independent witnesses that observed a struggle. And we do not know for certainty that Mr. Green was seatbelted in that cruiser.
Tell us anything about any other officers that may have been on the scene or near the scene when this occurred, or whether or not they witnesses in this case?
I cannot, again, out of respect for the grand jury process and obviously interviews that will need to proceed with our special investigations response team. As again, to be clear with the community, the investigation is not concluded because we have chosen to place charges based on probable cause, but those are components of the next phase. As was explained in a conversation we had earlier, there are two components, and we are being respectful of what follows with respect to the state's attorney's prosecution in this matter. He was handcuffed behind his back.
Madam Secretary, I just have a question. So we started with cuffs. We got 61 citizens. Then we have DeMonte, who actually was paralyzed by the police. Now we have another handcuffed man that's shot 7 times. When are we going to do a bad police register and stop taking charges from the collusion of these policemen being bad cops? We need a bad cop register because what they're doing is taking up for each other. The blue lives matter. So is it a possibility that we can get a list and stop taking charges and protecting these cops? Because now we started with punch, now we got a paralyzed man, now we got a man dead. We got a problem with you now.
Whom are you addressing that question to?
She's the one that wants the charges. Stop taking charges from these cops because eventually this cop lied. All the stories that came out in the beginning, if you guys stood by that cop, you guys stood by the cop. I'm talking to Madam Secretary.
No, I understand, ma'am. So if you have something you'd like to discuss further, we can do so after this press event. I understand, and that could be addressed after this media event. So with that, are there any more questions from members of the media? I'm not disregarding you. No, please, let's have a discussion afterward. Understood, ma'am. But ma'am, we may have a discussion afterwards about this. Okay, go ahead.
You know what, we appreciate your concern and we share it. I understand the passion that you brought here tonight. And let me just say, and you know, we're upset too. That's the reason we're here tonight. But what we want to do is to conclude this conference. And I promise you that we will step aside and talk to you. But we share your concern. We understand that you're upset and you're not alone. You are expressing the frustration of this community. We understand it. We get it. I promise you we will not minimize it. That's the reason we're here tonight, and we respect you for coming out to express it. If you just give us a chance to conclude here, I promise you that we will step aside. I know the state's attorney will be more than happy to discuss this with you.
All right, so if there are no other questions, okay. So So that's something that I'll be able to get you at a later date. So, Chief.
I want to be clear. This is a difficult decision to arrive at. We have to respect due process. But in the early morning hours, I had grave concerns. And that's why, for the last almost 24 hours, I've been engaged with all the components that I enumerated earlier. And then ultimately that decision was made earlier this afternoon. And we unfortunately had to set aside an earlier press appointment in order to conclude conversations with our partners on that. So in the early morning hours, I had grave concerns. And then early this afternoon, I arrived at that decision. And that's brought us to this point.
Chief, can you just be clear, is he in custody now and will face a bond hearing tomorrow?
He is in custody now, and we are anticipating a bond hearing in the near future, yes.
Do you have any information that Mr. Green may have had some kind of a diabetic reaction if he didn't?
I'm not going to be able to make any comments with respect to that.
Based on what we've heard about his erratic driving?
I don't have any insight into that question right now.
Something else I think is, you mentioned that there have been conversations about people who are experiencing some kind of trauma, whether it be with drugs or some kind of medical emergency or mental illness, and the police department's response to that. We were talking about treatment training. Will that be part of what you all are doing to look at what's going on for many people who are in traumatic situations or distress?
I'm not certain what the ACLU's reference for that is. What I know is that we train our officers in crisis intervention, and last evening was an example where they were looking for a drug recognition expert to address concerns that they had. In other cases, we refer to our psychological services for people who are in crisis and experiencing emotional crisis. So there's a host of capacities that we have under those circumstances. But yes, as the county executive has made clear, and as we will continue to do, we are going to look at our methods and practices and look to generate additional capacity, because this is not acceptable. This is not where we want to be. Our perspective on that, and it goes back to the very founding of the institution, is that that police officer is in a better position to control someone or prevent injury to a person if they have access to them in the front seat of that car. If you place them in the back seat of that car, that person can potentially attack that officer. That person can move throughout the vehicle. If there's an accident, you're not able to throw your arm over there, and I've done that, try to prevent somebody from being injured in a collision or a sudden stop. And again, these practices go back to, and my experience with that, to be clear, goes back to before airbags. So it's so that that officer has the ability to control that individual should they choose to become disorderly during the process of arrest. Again, I've addressed that. Those are matters of public record, and we're working to pull the public record from those events of almost 10 years ago so that we're providing the same information we disclosed publicly at that point. But again, I want to be clear, our goal is transparency. Our goal is to provide facts to this community and to hold people accountable. And we also have an obligation not to contravene the law, and that's why that's going to take a moment, because again, I'm standing here in an unprecedented set of circumstances and providing this information not 24 hours into it. I'm only asking for a little patience while we do that, so again, we don't contravene the law. I have seen stills from that video. I don't have any conclusion based on the stills.
Okay, one more.
You just mentioned unprecedented. I think you may have addressed this a little bit later. When was the last time Prince George's police officer was charged with murder? Can you recall that? Has this happened before? Is this rare? Can you speak to that?
Well, this has been a very challenging set of circumstances because there is a balancing act that's required, and that is our obligation under due process and our system of law. I feel that we have probable cause to place charges, and in my experience, this is unprecedented. And again, that's why I'm asking for patience as we provide you with as much information as we are able, because this isn't coming after 30 or 45 days of investigation. This is coming within 24 hours because I felt that was the appropriate remedy to these circumstances. I ask this community for their patience and understanding. I've made it clear that, in my view, this constitutes a crime, and that individual will be held accountable for that crime in the same way that any other individual under law would be held accountable. There aren't two sets of rules, and there is no dynamic whereby we are going to defend the indefensible. We are not defending the indefensible, and this demonstrates our commitment to that very principle once again. And if you take the time to examine my track record as the chief of police, you'll see that I have time and again made clear statements and taken clear action where actions of our officers fail to meet the standards of this community. With that, I'm going to conclude and say thank you all.
All right, my royal family. I know the sound was janky for the people at the back. I couldn't even hear them. But let's go back here. So, this brother here was handcuffed in the front seat and seatbelted. And this pig here, this ain't the first time he done pulled his gun out and shot. At us. When I look at a cop, they all one and the same. It doesn't matter the race. The thing that gets on my nerves, my royal family, is when these cops come out and start hollering transparency and establishing trust in the neighborhood. You don't worry about no other neighborhood but establishing trust in the black neighborhood. And then when y'all get y'all ass caught in a bind, transparency and investigations. We done heard all that shit and stuff. And I am led to believe that this cop knew him. And like when I had reported on that other cop who was known for terrorizing the neighborhood, this is what they do. People on the street will tell you the truth, what's really going on with him. He was grimy, he was greasy. And he felt like he was untouchable. And if somebody got under his skin, and this one apparently did, or he knew something about him, gonna shoot him 7 times. He touched your gun. He's handcuffed from the back with a seatbelt on, and he managed to touch your gun. That logically don't make no damn sense at all, and I'm not gonna entertain it. So what's new in America? Like I ask you all the time, America, how do you dismiss 16 bullets? America. I'll leave it right there, my royal family. Render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.